Edgewood University. Year 1. Episode 11. Hellhound. Jealousy only creates negative energy and can make a huge impact on your relationships. Instead of being jealous, be happy for your friend no matter how far they are in life. Connor refused to go to his suite until he knew Layla was safely in her bed. So Faith, Bailey, Cassidy, Cody, and Alex took him and Layla to the girls' suite. As soon as they entered Layla's room, Connor collapsed on her bed and fell asleep. Layla made a face and sighed. Alex looked at Layla and chuckled. "Guess you're going to have to share your bed tonight," he said, and she pressed her lips together. "We haven't even slept in it long enough to make my indent," she whined, and Faith chuckled. "Hopefully, my brother's big ass won't make an impression. It's just for one night, or is it?" She teased, and Layla blushed, making a face. Faith laughed, and Cody poked at his brother's face. "Yeah, sorry, Lay. It's lights out for him, and he's too heavy for me to carry," he said. Layla only nodded, too tired to care, and looked at Alex. "Just set me down next to him." She breathed, and her head went limp against Faith's chest. Alex scooped her in his arms and put her beside Connor. He pulled off her boots and covered them up with a blanket. Bailey watched how he cared for his alphas, and it touched her heart. "Come on, guys. Let's let them rest," said Faith. She, Cassidy, Bailey, Alex, and Cody left the room, and Layla opened her eyes. She looked at Connor's peaceful face and touched his cheek. She looked at his lips and inched closer. She pressed her lips against his, pulled back and snuggled against his chest. His arms wrapped around her, and she rested her head against his bicep as she drifted off to sleep. "This is insane," Cassidy breathed, sitting on the couch, and Cody sat beside her. "What, that we have classes starting tomorrow?" snorted Bailey, and Cassidy blinked. "It's more like Tyler killing his father to become alpha, and Connor's an alpha hellhound. I mean, did you ever notice anything strange about your brother growing up?" she asked, looking at Faith. Faith thought momentarily and shook her head. "No, I mean, he has a bad temper, but that's because our father abused him. I do remember our treehouse starting on fire, and our parents were so scared they wouldn't talk about it." "Why haven't you asked Connor what happened? I was still in diapers back then," asked Cody, and his sister sighed. "I have, and he says he doesn't remember," she said sadly. "Okay, I think we should talk about this when Connor and Layla wake up. We should try and get some rest," said Alex, raising his eyebrows, and Cody agreed. "Night, ladies," said Cody, and Alex touched Bailey's face. "Sleep well," he whispered, kissed her cheek, and he and Cody left the room. "Tyler, I can't express how proud I am of you. You did well tonight, and now you're the Tate family alpha," said Maya, and Tyler rolled his eyes. "I know this must be hard on you. After all, you did kill your father, but now you can carry on our family's legacy and bond with your Hellcat," she said, and he looked at his mother angrily. "I didn't have to kill him. We could have found another way. But no, we have to do things your way," he growled, and Maya raised a finger. "But you would never received the alpha power if we went a different way." Tyler scowled, crossed his arms, and leaned against the wall. He didn't want to kill his father, but his mother didn't give him a choice. "It didn't have to go down like this," he murmured, and Maya looked at her son. "Well, what's done is done. Now, my son, you will start training at the barracks after classes and make sure your grades do not falter. Alphas need to be smart and strong." "And what about my friends? Should I ignore the fact I have them?" Tyler glared at his mother, and she shook her head. "They will be joining you. With 3 alphas, it will make us that much stronger." He was about to protest, but Maya waved him off. "Go now. See your friends and get some rest," she said. He only nodded, walked out of the office, and punched the wall. He realized what he had to do and ran for the girls' suite. Layla slowly opened her eyes and felt strong arms around her. She looked around her room, confused, and wondered what happened. Suddenly, memories flooded her mind, and she remembered taking Connor's hand and bonding with him. Her eyes widened, and she sat up, looking at the handsome man beside her. Connor was sleeping peacefully, and she gently moved his hair and studied his face. She felt an attraction toward him and pulled her hand back. Why did she bond with him? Why did she trust him so much? Why did she kiss him last night? Layla shook the thoughts from her head and scowled. Her scowl faded into a smile, and she carefully slipped off the bed. She made sure he was asleep, quickly changed into shorts and a t-shirt and put on her slippers. She left the room, quietly closed the door, turned around and gasped. Cassidy, Bailey, and Faith stared at her, and Layla scowled. "Don't stare at me like that. It's creepy. Now, does anyone want to tell me why Connor is sleeping in my bed, or better yet, why I bonded with him?" She whispered, and the girls giggled. She looked at them oddly and realized they were looking behind her. "And he's standing right behind me, isn't he?" Bailey nodded and chuckled. "Yeah, he is." She laughed, and Layla made a face. She felt his breath on her ear and inhaled sharply. "Don't worry, babe. I was wondering the same thing," Connor whispered, and Layla straightened. "We should do it again sometime," he whispered, rubbing her shoulders, and she relaxed. He kissed her cheek and walked toward the suite door. "I'm headed to my suite. Let me know when you figure it out." He opened the door and saw Tyler was about to knock. Tyler's eyes started glowing, and Connor raised an eyebrow. "Oh, Layla," he said, turning his head toward her. Thanks again for last night. I hope I didn't get your bedding too dirty," he said, adjusting his jeans. Layla's hand flew to her mouth and she giggled. "That's what they make washers and dryers for, my dear," she teased. Connor winked and left the room. Tyler closed the door, staring at Layla, and then he shot her a dirty look. What the hell was he talking about? Layla, Bailey, Cassidy, and Faith looked at each other, and Tyler crossed his arms. "Well, while you were off killing your father and doing your mother's bidding, Layla had an episode, and when my brother helped her through it, they bonded," said Faith, taking a bit from a chocolate bar. "What?" he asked, looking at Layla. "You chose him." Layla looked at Faith and back at Tyler. "No, not exactly. It doesn't work like that. It happened after you ran off with your mother," she explained, and Tyler scoffed. Layla's eyebrows shot down in anger, and she looked at him with glowing eyes. "Connor was the only one who risked getting burned to death when I lost control. If it weren't for him, I would have burned everyone in the schoolyard," she said, and he shook his head. "No matter who you bond to, you're still part of this family. My father bit you. Unbelievable, Lay." Layla inhaled sharply as tears rolled down her cheeks, and Tyler's heart surged. "And since she and Connor bonded, that makes us family," added Faith, and Tyler growled, making his eyes shimmer. "Whoa, easy there. You might be my family, but you're not my alpha," she sneered. "No, but my mother is head of this institution, and you, Connor, Cody, Alex, Cassidy, Bailey, and Layla are to report to the barracks after class tomorrow." Bailey looked at him and scoffed. "I'm a mind fairy. Fairies aren't allowed at the barracks. No exceptions." He snapped and left the room. "What the fuck is his problem?" asked Cassidy, and Layla sighed. "He's mad because he wanted to bond with Layla, and he's a fresh new alpha. You know how new alphas get. It's like they get their first periods or something. Like Lay said, werewolf PMS," said Faith, rolling her eyes, and Layla agreed. "Connor?" Connor turned his head, groaned, and drifted back to sleep. He had come back to his room, taken a shower, and fallen asleep. "Connor?" He turned his head into his pillow and growled. He felt soft hands rub his back as a calm washed over him, and he sighed, creasing his brow. The gentle hands rubbed his shoulders, neck, and lower back, and he growled softly. "Connor, wake up." A hand rested on his neck, and he felt fingers scratching under his chin. "Please," said a soft voice. Her scent hit his nostrils, and he opened his eyes and rolled over. Layla was dressed in black shorts and a white oversized shirt with a collar slipped over her cream-colored, freckle-dusted shoulder, and she was barefoot. Her hair was up in a messy bun, and a few loose strands framed her face. She was kneeling beside him, and he looked at her, half asleep. "Lay, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," she said, crossing her legs. Connor's eyebrows rose, and he stared at her. Layla snapped her fingers, and he looked at her. "And this couldn't wait till morning?" he asked, closing one eye, and she laughed, biting her cuticle. "It is morning. I came over because something crossed my mind while I was in the shower," she said. He looked at her and raised an eyebrow, and she laughed, smacking his chest. "Stop it!" He laughed, and she snorted. "Now, what if we had some sort of connection before we bonded? What if our connection started when I was in the mundane world?" Connor looked at her, rested his head on his pillow, and chuckled. "So, what you're saying is you think we were already connected before we even met?" He couldn't stop staring. He tried paying attention, but all he could think about was tackling her on the bed and ravishing her. She looked so damn cute. How she wrinkled her nose, the way she moved her hands when she talked, "Connor?" He lifted his head and looked at her in alarm. "Were you even paying attention?" Layla asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, in a way," he said, staring at her shoulder and wanting to kiss her soft skin. She poked his chest, and he looked at her. He put his hand on her bare thigh and gently rubbed it. "Tell you what," he said, looking into her eyes, and her eyes lit up. "Why don't you finish getting yourself all dolled up and ready for class, and we can talk more after breakfast?" Layla grinned and nodded. "Great," she said as she got off the bed, and Connor snatched her wrist. She looked at him oddly, and he yanked her toward him. He wrapped his arms around her, and she giggled. "What's this?" She laughed, and he pressed his face in the crook of her neck. "Did my sister warn you?" he asked, and she looked at him. "Warn me about what?" she asked softly and felt the calming sensation. It made her head spin. He made her dizzy with just a touch of his hand. Connor kissed her bare shoulder and gave her a thoughtful look. "I can be a real bear in the morning," he growled, and she inhaled sharply. He kissed her neck, and she ran her fingers through his hair. She felt him shudder and realized he knew what she was feeling when she touched him. He pulled back, smirked, looked over her pretty face, and hid his face in her hair. "Okay, go finish getting ready, and I'll see you at breakfast," he said, nuzzling her hair. She looked at him momentarily, kissed his cheek, and crawled off the bed. She smiled shyly, waved her fingers, and left the room. Connor sighed, pushing his face into his pillow, and laughed. He got out of bed and headed to take a shower. Layla slipped on low ankle sneakers, grabbed her backpack, and walked into the sitting room. "And where did you sneak off to this morning?" asked Faith, and Layla blushed, rubbing her shoulder. "I went to see your brother. He told me to meet him for breakfast," she said, and Faith laughed. "I'm sorry, my dear. I should have warned you. Connor can be a real bear in the morning." Layla snickered, still feeling Connor's soft lips on her skin, and she played with her rings. "Don't worry. I can make that big." Scary Man dropped to his knees with the touch of my fingertips, she said, grinning and watching a flame dance in her hand. Faith laughed, and tears rolled down her cheeks. "It's true. Oh, my poor brother." "No, Faith. Poor Layla. She's bonded with him for life," said Cassidy, and Faith laughed harder until tears poured down her cheeks. "Poor us. We're all one big happy family," snickered Bailey, and they all laughed. Faith put her arm around Layla's shoulders and grinned. "Come on, let's get this girl to the dining hall. She has a date with an alpha," she said, and Layla smiled shyly. She'd never seen a man so gorgeous in her life, and the thoughts of this world being all a dream still tickled the back of her mind. "To the dining hall," said Bailey, and the girls laughed, heading out the door. Connor, Alex, and Cody sat at a back table, and Connor spotted Layla and the girls in line getting their trays. Two blonde-haired girls walked up to the table, and Connor sighed, rolling his eyes. "Hi, Connor. I'm Alyssa, and this is Lydia. We've heard so much about you, and we're wondering if we could sit with you," asked one of the girls. Connor leaned back in his chair, glanced at Alex, and watched Layla. Alex nodded and looked at the girls. "You are more than welcome to sit with us, but Connor is expecting someone," he said, biting a piece of bacon, and the girls scoffed as they walked off. "Was it something I said?" he asked, shrugging and smirking. Cody laughed, and Connor chuckled, ignoring them. He was too busy watching Layla and her every move. He noticed the ugly scar on her side when she reached for something and felt enraged at how sloppy Peter was. He then noticed a bite scar on her calf and tilted his head. The only way she would have a scar was if something happened before she was bitten. Connor wondered what had happened and what her life had been like before she came to his.